What we have here is Mr. Walter Ziegler from South Carolina, who served aboard the USS Tappahannock. And what I'm going to do is just ask a few little questions about his time aboard the ship and what kind of job he did and this sort of thing as well, okay? What years did you serve in the Navy?
From August of 1965 until August of '69.
Okay, and your rate was?
Bosun mate, third class.
All right, explain what a bosun mate really does in relation to a fleet oiler like this.
What he does is, you got like second division back here and first division up here, and I was in first division. We take care of all the riggings and all the painting and keeping the decks clean and all the rigging. It's like just a big rigger.
At the time of replenishing at sea, what were your duties at that time?
I had different jobs. One would be like these hoses. There's a cable that comes from that hose that goes to the ship, and the hoses slide down. The cable by itself is called the span wire, and it's got to be on there so the hoses can slide down to the ship to hook up the oil.
What we're talking about here is that these two ships are side by side, like you see on the photograph on the other side here. And you start out by, how did the first line you get across? How did they get that line across?
It's called a shot line. You either use a bolo or you shoot it with a gun.
That's right. Which is a little small line.
Right.
Then you attach a little bit larger line to that one.
And keep pulling.
And you keep pulling, and finally you get a wire cable.
That's right.
Yeah. I used to be on the other end, so I can remember that as well. And I'll have to tell you a story about that later on as well. Now, you went aboard the ship at what point? The ship was had just come out of a mothball?
It came out of mothballs, and I guess the ship went to Algiers, Louisiana. And they got a bunch of crew and his sons all to Norfolk to go through school. Then we had to go to the ship and finish up what they were doing. So we bring it in commission.
At the time, so it wasn't in commission when you went aboard? So at the time you went aboard, you lived aboard, but most of the crew was still living in barracks?
No, they all finally came on to live.
Okay.
And then it came in commission.
And how long after commission you did a shake-it-down cruise?
The only shakedown cruise we did was when we went from Algiers to Long Beach. And that was it.
Through the Panama Canal?
Through the Panama Canal, and we stopped off the coast of Mexico, dropped anchor, and stayed there for a couple of days, and then we pulled in anchor and took off again to Long Beach.
Did you have swim call?
Let me tell you about swim call. I've always wanted a swim call. That was my dream. But the dream never came until the last tour. I'm not gonna tell you the captain's name because I really forgot his name. But he had a swim call, and I wanted to be the first one to go in the water, but I lost out, so I had to man the little motor whale boat. You put a little boat in the water before they dropped anchor, and on that boat you guys with M1s and Thompsons and 45s in case sharks came around. But what it was, the current was 2 knots, and the captain said, we'll do 2 knots into this current, which sounded good. But when those guys hit the water and they came up, the ship was gone, because that was like doing 8 knots, 4 knots.
Okay.
So anyway, that was a disaster.
And this is one of the amazing things about, to me, when I started doing the research on this ship, was the fact that from the time the keel was laid, and that's that rib that runs all the way along the bottom, till this ship was underway, 6 months. They built this ship in 6 months. And it was actually in a war zone in Noumea, New Caledonia in 9 months after the keel was laid. It was up here in Pennsylvania where the ship was made. And to me, that's the most amazing thing that I found about the ship, from the standpoint of how quickly it was built and how quickly it got out, let's say, Noumea, New Caledonia. Tell us about replenishing at sea at night. My recollection is it seemed like when you're in the Western Pacific is that we did most of them at night, and if there was a rain squall within 50 miles, they found a way to get into that rain squall so everybody got wet.
Well, you get wet, but at night, it's actually dangerous, because you gotta go by just a couple of lights. A couple of red lights, for instance. If you're in a war zone, you don't wanna light the whole ship up,
That's right.
so you just gotta pay attention. And each person got his job, and he just got to do the job.
Explain to how these ships now, they're side by side and what's involved with that?
Well, you got two ships side by side, and some would be rocking this way and the other would be rocking the other way, and you gotta keep the lines tight, keep the hoses out of the water, and it's just, you're kinda weird on the mentally.
Were you ever on deck during a breakaway?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Explain what we're talking about, a breakaway.
When one ship will lose, steering and just, and it's gotta be done real fast. Like when the repos hit us. They didn't break away, they came at us, and they just,
What was this again?
the repos, hospital ship,
Okay.
it put us in dry dock. But they hit right here. It took this whole rig down. Their anchor caught that shroud wire and just snatched everything down.
He's talking about the repos, REPOSE, which is a hospital ship, and it actually, was anyone hurt?
Not serious, except the ship. Matter of fact, we had to fix two Band-Aids for it. You go in port with two big long camels, Band-Aids. They look good.
Did you ever break away where the hose broke and the oil went everywhere?
Well, if it's fast, sometimes the fins come loose, yeah, and you just spray on.
How long does it take between the time the ship comes up beside you and you get your
Good question.
pipe?
Good question, I'm gonna tell you, lady, it's like this. One time, an aircraft carrier came along beside, like say the Enterprise. Now, that's a nuclear carrier, right? So it don't need fuel, but it takes on enough fuel to replenish his ships with. So he got taken a lot of fuel. We had one stay alongside for 24 hours. And in 24 hours, his escort made 2 or 3 passes on the other side to keep topping off. So it's just, there's no set time.
Right.
Just depends on how big the ship is.
Okay.
But an aircraft carrier, a nuclear, he's also a tanker. But he carries a lot of fuel, even though he don't use it.
Was this the only ship you served on?
One will say pretty much.
How would you view your time aboard the ship?
Well, the time was, it was good times, except, you ever watched that movie Forrest Gump? I'm a backup one, I'm gonna tell you about Forrest Gump. The first trip we took out of Long Beach heading for the Philippines, we stopped off in Hawaii. After we left Hawaii, we had a typhoon, and the whole front of this ship, the swells were so big that the water would come across the top of the bow, and the water would hit about right here. So at one time, you couldn't even see the front of the ship. It was all underwater. And once a day, on this catwalk, this little thing went down through the middle here, a guy would have to run when the waves were just right. He had to run up here and cut this corner and open this little door before the water could hit him. So you can make sure nothing broke loose up front. That's just an exciting day in a typhoon. And believe me, you will pray to God too, I'll tell you that.
Or tell us about your cruise there. You were telling me about that you got out at age 21,
No, day before.
the day before. Explain what your situation was.
I was a kiddie cruiser.
What call it kiddie cruiser?
A kiddie cruiser gets out in the Navy the day before he turns 21. If you're 17 years old, that's called a kiddie cruiser. I turned 17 on August the 23rd in 1965, and I joined the Navy at August 31st, 1965. So I only served 3 years, 11 months, and so many days.
Did you experience any of the anti-Vietnam sentiment that was pretty prevalent in those days?
You mean from the people back home?
Yeah. when you came back, when you home ported in San Diego?
I can't talk about that. I can talk about anything with that. You know, 17 years old and you go. And when you fly back into an airport and people spit on you and call your names and degrade you, that's not right. That's not right. I just can't talk about that part of it on.
It was a tough time. First of all, thank you for making this trip up
Oh,
here
you're welcome.
for all of us.